to us and challenges us about a house divided will not stand. Church unity matters. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Fantastic. Well, my name's Matt Prater, as in Pray to God, and it's a privilege to be able to be sharing tonight about church unity matters. A house divided will not stand. I've been pastoring now for 11 years at New Hope Church. It's not No Hope Church, it's New Hope Church. We're next to the Normanby Hotel, and our vision is to empty the pub and fill the church. I've also been doing this radio show, interviewing people about their faith and their stories. And on the subject of church unity, there's two standout interviews that I've done, which I wanted to share with you tonight. One of them was with Brian Pickering. He's the founder of the Australian Prayer Network. They send out emails all across Australia encouraging people to pray and fast and stand in the gap for Australia for revival. And Brian shared in the interview that he was really impressed by a ministers' fraternal meeting in Canberra. They had all the different denominations gathered together, the Baptist and the Baptist and the Catholic and the Pentecostal, all the different denominations gathered together. And they were talking about all the good things that are happening in their city. And they had a police constable come in. He was a Christian. And he put down a map of Canberra and showed where all the on-fire churches were in Canberra. And then he put down another map on top of that, which showed where all the highest crime rate areas were in Canberra. Wherever there was an on-fire church was a low crime rate. Wherever there was a high crime rate, there were no on-fire churches. And so he said, thank you for what you're doing. Wherever your churches are, it's making a difference. It's helping the community. And then he challenged the pastors. He said, I think you should all go and plant churches in the areas where the high crime rates are. But none of them did. None of them were interested. They were happy to stay in their nice, safe suburbs where their churches were thriving and doing well. They didn't want to follow Jesus' command to go out into the highways and the byways and care for the lost and the broken. And I think one of the keys to church unity and healing in our nation is for the church to actually get on the same page together, to actually be headed in the same direction. One of the other interviews I did that impacted me was Mark Stiles, a man from Brisbane, a policeman. He'd been abused as a young man. He'd led a life of alcoholism, drug addiction, broken relationships, and really had a lot of baggage he'd carried in his life. And eventually he hit rock bottom and gave his life to Christ. And Mark Stiles shared that he wrestled with the abuse he'd suffered as a kid at a Salvation Army boys' home. He wrestled with being able to forgive the perpetrators. But through the grace that he'd received from Jesus, he learnt to forgive his perpetrators. And he shared his story. He's been on TV, he's been on the radio, he's got an amazing testimony. And I've been part of the National Day of Prayer and Fasting team in Canberra over the last few years. And Mark was able to share his testimony of healing at a combined church gathering where there was a real sense of unity. 1,000 people in the Great Hall of Parliament House praying and fasting for Australia. And he actually was there at a special service called the Healing the Wounds of Disunity service. They had the leaders of the Salvation Army, Hillsong Church, ACC churches. There was Catholic and Anglican, many denominations gathered together in unity. And they asked for forgiveness for each other, for the disunity they'd had in the past. They washed each other's feet, just like the command of Jesus. And then the head of the Salvation Army asked for Mark's forgiveness for what had happened to him as a boy in the Salvo's boys' home. And then the head of the Salvation Army washed Mark's feet. And then they invited his wife. Spontaneously, they invited his wife to the stage because she had carried this burden with Mark. And they washed her feet as well. I believe that was one of the most healing moments for Mark and his wife, for those denominational leaders, and for our nation. You see, our church in the past has made lots of mistakes. Look at the Royal Commission. Look at the horrible reputation the church has in this nation because of all the mistakes of the past. We need to learn from the mistakes of the past, and we need to forgive. We need to wash each other's feet. We need to be in unity together. And we need to move forward with a common goal. A.T. Pearson said this: there's never been a spiritual awakening in any country or locality that did not begin with united prayer. How are we going to heal the wounds of disunity in our nation? On our knees, in prayer, washing each other's feet, serving each other, just like Christ would have us do. Matthew 12:22 says, every kingdom divided itself against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided itself will not stand. A house divided will not stand. Here I've got a Gospel of Matthew, little Bible that was given to me, a family heirloom. It was given to me by my great-grandfather, Leonard Charles Wheaton, one of the light horsemen who fought at the Battle of Beersheba. We're about to celebrate the 100th anniversary on October 31 of the Battle of the Light Horse, and I'm proud that he gave me this Gospel of Matthew, which is that verse I just quoted, a house divided will not stand, from the Gospel of Matthew. Those men led one of the last great cavalry charges in history to liberate Jerusalem and bring a blessing to Jerusalem. They had a common enemy, the Ottoman Empire, and the Allies united together against a common enemy. We need to redeem that same fighting spirit that the Light Horsemen had in the church. We need to be able to fight with one common enemy against the devil. The devil's plan is to divide and conquer. He wants us to be separate in our denomination, separate in our beliefs, to argue about our doctrinal differences. At Bible college, they taught me to major on the major things and minor on the minor things. The major thing is Jesus. The major thing is the gospel. The major thing is prayer. I might just ask Pete to come up and join me for just 1 second. Now face the other way. Now imagine if he had a bunch of enemies over that side and I had a bunch of enemies on this side. We'd be able to fight together, wouldn't we? And protect each other. We're dressed in the armour of God, the helmet of salvation, the shield of faith, the sword of the Spirit, the belt buckle of truth. You know, we're dressed in our... But interestingly, with the armour of God, there's nothing covering our backs. And as Christians, we need to make sure that we have each other's back. We don't use our swords to backstab each other. We shouldn't be wasting our fire as friendly fire. We should have each other's back. Because Psalm 133 says, where there is unity, the Lord commands a blessing. That's how we'll fight against their enemies, if we've got each other's back. Give Peter a hand. Thanks for that. Great stuff.
That's right.
In a Peanuts cartoon, Lucy demanded that Linus change TV channels, threatening him with her fist if he didn't. What makes you think you can walk right over here and take over? Asked Linus. These 5 fingers, says Lucy. Individually, they're nothing. But when I curl them up together like a single unit, they form a weapon that is terrible to behold. Which channel do you want? Asked Linus. Turning away, he looked at his fingers and he says, why can't you guys get organised like that? If only the church in this nation could get organised like that. Not trying to reach out and do our own things and build our own kingdom, but build the kingdom. We could pack a punch together if we're in unity. Let's learn the lessons from the past. Let's learn from the mistakes of the disunity of the past. Let's unite together for men like Mark, who've been abused, who had a grudge against the church, but who found healing when there was forgiveness and where there was unity among the church leaders. Let's believe that many others will be healed. Jesus said, this is how the whole world will know you, my disciples, if you have love for one another. Corrie ten Boom said this, be united with other Christians. A wall with loose bricks is not good. The bricks must be cemented together. Billy Graham, one of the greatest evangelists of the modern era, was interviewed recently and said that he would never go into a town or a community or a nation to preach unless he was invited by the church, capital C, and if they were in unity together. He'd tried it. He'd gone into towns to try and preach, and if there was fighting among the church, he said the ground was hard and the gospel wouldn't bear fruit. But whenever there was prayer, whenever there was unity, whenever the church was together, he knew it was good soil for the gospel to be proclaimed, and he would see revival break out. What's the answer to healing our divided nation? I believe it's the church. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. I will forgive their sin and I will heal their land. How do we get healing in this land? It starts with us, the church. We need to forgive each other. We need to love each other. We need to be in unity together. And we need to get on our knees and pray for healing for our nation. Thanks very much. God bless.
Finish off with. So as we conclude our time and we start to reflect,
on the talks we've had tonight and the challenges